They said this was just a diplomatic agreement. Nigel Farage says it's something far more dangerous, an alliance fracture with Washington itself. And behind closed doors, he claims Trump's inner circle is already furious. This wasn't a policy debate. This was a warning shot fired in Parliament. He says he warned them weeks ago, ignore this deal and you risk confronting the United States on defense and sovereignty at the worst possible moment.
For Braintree was doing his best to give away the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands. Indeed, he wrote to Secretary of State Blinken at the time. There is, I can assure you...
What do you think about this debate? Drop your opinion in the comments below and join the discussion on what really happened here.
Having been in America last week, knowing also the incoming Defense Secretary very well, there is outright hostility to this deal. Whatever is said about a lease agreement, as we saw with Hong Kong, these agreements can very, very easily be broken. Diego Garcia was described to me by a senior Trump advisor as the most important island on the planet as far as America was concerned. So you're going to find outright hostility. There is no basis for this agreement to continue as it is, and if you do, you'll be at conflict with a country without which we would be defensive.
What the honourable gentleman has had to say. Let me be absolutely clear. This government inherited a situation where the long-term secure operation of this crucial military base, he is right on that one point, was under threat. International courts were reaching judgments, international organisations were taking steps not to undermine Mauritian sovereignty. I note the comments he makes regarding the incoming US administration. We're looking very forward to working with them, and I'm sure that they will be being briefed on the full detail of this deal. And I am confident, Mr. Speaker, that the details of this arrangement will allay any concerns. We would have not entered into any such arrangement in the first place.
What you just heard in that exchange is not a normal policy disagreement. It is a warning being thrown directly at the government about a deal that could reshape relations with the United States at the worst possible moment. Nigel Farage starts by making it very clear. This is not some theoretical concern raised after the fact. He claims he warned the Foreign Secretary weeks ago that moving forward with this arrangement right before a U.S. presidential election on November 5th was politically reckless. And the reason he gives is even more serious. He says the incoming U.S. administration is not aligned with this deal at all, and this is where the tone shifts sharply. Farage doesn't just suggest disagreement. He describes outright hostility from key figures in the incoming American security establishment. He references the incoming National Security Advisor and the incoming defense leadership, implying that from Washington's perspective, this agreement is already a major problem before it even fully takes effect. Then he escalates further by bringing in Diego Garcia, calling it one of the most strategically important islands for the United States. The implication is clear. This is not just a diplomatic arrangement. This is a military and geopolitical pressure point. And according to Farage, any assumption that this can simply be leased and left untouched ignores historical precedent where similar arrangements have not held up under political pressure. And then comes the warning line that defines his entire argument. He says, if the UK continues down this path, it risks entering direct conflict with a country it depends on for defense. That is the core accusation being placed on the table. But then the government side responds, and the tone immediately changes from warning to rejection. The Foreign Secretary pushes back, saying the government fundamentally disagrees with this interpretation. He frames the situation as inherited instability, arguing that international courts and global organizations were already influencing the status of the base long before this agreement was made. In his view, the deal is not betrayal, it is stabilization. And when Farage points to incoming U.S. hostility, the response is essentially diplomatic confidence. The government says it is ready to work with the next U.S. administration and believes that once the full details of the arrangement are properly explained, concerns will be resolved. But notice what is happening beneath the surface of this exchange. One side is describing an escalating international backlash, potential strategic fallout, and long-term alliance damage. The other side is framing it as a misunderstood but necessary legal and diplomatic adjustment that will ultimately be accepted once reviewed. Two completely different readings of the same agreement. And the real tension in this debate is not just about the deal itself, it is about who is correctly reading the direction of US-UK relations after the next American administration takes power. Because if Farage is right, this is not just policy disagreement. It is a strategic miscalculation with consequences far beyond Parliament. And if the government is right, then the warning of outright hostility may simply be political framing rather than diplomatic reality. That is the clash sitting underneath every line of this exchange.